When you think of scripted TV, your mind probably goes straight to the US. I know mine does. They are prolific at creating content, delivering entertainment to the world. I was fascinated to learn that only 500 new scripted television shows get commissioned in the US each year. Only 500. Think about all of the TV stations, all the places where you consume scripted TV and scripted content. Only 500 new ones get over the line each year in the US. So the question becomes, what is it that makes those 500 get over that line, get commissioned, and then eventually get made? Here in Australia, I spoke to Julie Eckersley. Now, she is the ex-head of scripted at SBS, knows a hell of a lot about scripted TV and what gets things commissioned. For her, it's about the person who's pitching. Can they bring the emotion of the story into that pitch room? Can't be phoned in, can't feel like a scripted narrative. No, it needs to have emotion in it and feel live. She really broke that down for me, and I know you're going to love this episode. Stories by their very nature are organic. They happen to you. You then take that material and you recount it to somebody else. You bring some visual imagery. You try and take people there. Maybe you layer in some emotion. That's what storytelling is. One could be misled to think they just happen. Well, there is a structure that sits underneath any great story. And if we think about it in business, eventually we are trying to influence someone to do something. Invest, donate their time, join the business, work longer hours, whatever it may be. So this structure is going to be useful for you when you try and influence people to do things. Now, it's called Minto, developed by Barbara Minto. She was the first female to graduate from Harvard Business School, incredible executive, came up through McKinsey. And one of the many brilliant things she did was she gave us, the business world, this lovely system. It's called Minto, and it's SCQA. Situation, complication, question, answer. Any story that you want to tell where you want someone to be able to make a high conviction decision by the end, i.e. influence them to something, try SCQA. So, situation. What is true about the current moment? Factual, observing things, pretty simple, straight up and down. But you're really landing your audience into the current context. Then, complication. What has changed? What is going wrong? What is the challenge? What do we need to face up against? Complication. From there, question. Because of that context and the complication, what is the question that we need to ask ourselves? What is the job to be done? Clearly stated. That's the cue. And then finally, A, answer. Considering the situation and that current complication, plus the question, here is the answer. Probably 3 to 5 points, bolstered by facts, information, stats. And that is the perfect structure for a story that influences people. Situation, complication, question, answer. Now, if you want to see for yourself how powerful this is, go to your chosen AI. Give it an email you've written, a presentation you've given, feed it in and ask it to do it in the SCQA format. And what you'll notice is your email, your story, your presentation will get shorter and it'll be a lot easier to say yes to for an audience. We've discussed stories that we tell other people, things that maybe we say in an all-staff meeting or we say around a coffee or maybe, if we're lucky enough, at a keynote presentation. These are stories that we tell other people. What about the internal stories? I certainly know for myself, if my internal story is off, I have a bad day. I have a bad meeting. If I'm in my head telling myself something which isn't positive, which isn't additive, I can have a really bad day. And I know this happens for a lot of people. So we need to stay in check with our internal stories. What do we believe about ourselves How have we classified ourselves? The simplest, most obvious example that I see all the time is I meet people who tell me they are a bad presenter. And when I look at their presenting style, often the I'm a bad presenter and the way they present have nothing to do with each other, in the sense that great presenters tell me they're a bad presenter and not so great presenters tell me they're a bad presenter. What narrative is true? One thing I know for sure, if you tell yourself you're a bad presenter, you will eventually become a bad presenter, mainly because you'll stop presenting. You'll lean out of those opportunities. Hey, who wants to present this? Not me, I'm a bad presenter. Like anything, when you get unfit, you'll become worse and worse at something. So we've got to stay really in tune with what our internal stories are. What is the narrative that you're telling yourself? Now, you may not have even thought about it like that, but step back for a moment. Maybe use SCQA. Think about your own monologue. What's your current situation? What are the complications you're facing into? Therefore, what is the question that you need to address? And finally, what's the answer? What action are you going to take and what are you going to do about it? Now, I'm conscious this feels a little bit life coachy, and maybe it is. But I know for sure, if you get your internal story right, it ends up showing up in the external stories that you tell in life, in business, friends, family, clients. It actually shows up there if you get your internal monologue right. I'm lucky enough to spend time with really important senior people, clients of mine who run businesses, ASX 50 companies. These people are at the top of their game. They're thought leaders. They got tons of experience. I am shocked to my bones. Often, session 1, I hear stories from them about them feeling like an imposter syndrome. It's an internal dialogue that they have with themselves where they tell me, I'm an unlikely CEO. Oh, look, I came up internally in this business, so I probably wouldn't be the ideal person for the job. Just let that sink in for a minute. People that are on $5 million a year plus, 30 years experience, absolute thought leader, have got a C in their title. They are questioning if they are the right person for this moment, for this job. They've got imposter syndrome, right? What is the antidote to imposter syndrome? A very tricky question. But one thing that I do, I think about worst case, best case scenarios. I think to myself, before one of these moments where I'm starting to erode my own confidence, I just quickly visualize, what's the absolute best thing that could happen? Think about that, bring it to life in your mind, maybe even imagine it's happening. And then on the flip side, what's the absolute worst thing that could happen in this moment? I'm always surprised at how minimal the bad side is, usually. So I do those two visualizations. I then walk into the room with the good visualization in my mind. It takes away some of the consequences and it leans you into the positive moment. Now, I get it, that's only one moment, but if you string enough of those moments together, that becomes your new narrative. And these things are narrative-based. People have imposter syndrome because they're telling themselves a story and they're believing it. The way to bust through that story is to have enough positive moments or evidence to prove otherwise. At the end of each episode, I want to leave you with something to do, an action to take. And this app, I'm calling it Story Collector. I want you to go out into the world and I want you to collect stories. And in this instance, it's stories about you. Go and ask people around you to recount moments they've had with you in business or in life. Hear them out. Ask them for the detail. Ask them for their perspective. And then collect that story and add it to your current narrative. A couple of things will occur to you. Almost all these stories will be positive, right? Most people around you have positive thoughts about you, especially if you ask them point blank in front of you. They're going to give you positive stories. Collect those stories, add them to your stories with the objective to change your own narrative. Potentially going from self-doubt, self-deprecation, maybe even fear, to self-belief, cultivating confidence, and dare I say it, fun. That's my job for you. That's your to-do. Go and be a story collector, stories about yourself, add them to your own narrative. It'll make a big impact. Thanks for listening to this episode. It's a really important conversation that needs to happen, and you can find us anywhere where you get high-quality podcasts. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, make sure you check out the next episode.